Other than that, guys, welcome out. Come on.
There we go. What an intro. I guess it better be an intro because we're getting it 2 or 3 times.
Hey, we heard it heard it 2 or 3 times. But you know what? Welcome out, guys, to No Justice, Maki and Martin. You know, I heard rumors that the old leaders that we overthrew are trying to take this back over. But I mean, I'm not going to let them succeed.
They should not have given us the keys to the castle. You know, haven't you learned anything? You know, so yeah. So Maddie is back tomorrow. Is that right? And what about Tim?
I don't believe Tim is back. Matt will be back. And actually, I like the way that you said it on Twitter. Matt will be our first guest on our show.
Exactly, and I couldn't think of a more fitting guest. It is. I told him it would be an honor, and I did mean it. Will be an absolute honor to interview Matt here tomorrow.
I mean, he's an awesome guest, well informed. He knows so much. I would love to be able to interview him, just be able to pick his brain.
I think we can all learn a little bit. So make sure you stay tuned for tomorrow's episode, ladies and gentlemen, because special guest Matt Justice will be live in the building.
All righty. Well, a lot of fun that we could have with that. We could go on and on for days talking about hashtag No Justice. Let me go ahead and pull my screen up.
Probably should talk to markets.
Zoom usually lets me just pick which individual screen I want to share. Today it's not. It says I got to share everything at once. So if we end up having to switch between this screen or YouTube, y'all might just see yourselves in your own chat on the screen.
Interesting. So interesting. Well, sharing is caring, my friend, and maybe that's the new Zoom approach.
Well, let me start off by quizzing our halftime crew because they should know this. I mean, we've been teaching, how to run through a basic market. I do it every Friday and kind of talk about, how to do a top-down analysis. So I want to give a quick quiz out to everyone. What is some of the news out there what are the top headlines that is causing, some fear in the market right now? Because there is fear in the market. So I'm going to take a quick second. Let's see what our crew has to say. What headlines do we have out there? And actually, right after I said I can't share more than one, I need to find a way to see my chat then.
I go with the highly technologically advanced 2 computers, one with chat, one to be on Zoom.
Well, actually, what I'm going to do, I'm going to hand off share to you. Is that all right with you?
Yes, sir. Let me get up and ready to roll here. I'm like Tim. I always have a million things on my screen. So let's see here. Okay.
You're the tab man.
I'm the tab man. All right, good deal.
All right, looking over here, EU, Justin and Dustin. Yeah, Draghi out there.
Mm-hmm. Making some noise.
Right. So, talked about him before. Draghi is he's the equivalent to Jerome Powell and the Fed here in the United States. So he is the single most influential voice when it comes to that currency. So Draghi, who ever since taking over the EU, their bank, has stated that he will do whatever it takes to help protect the currency. And then he's jumped in both feet to do the exact opposite. Anytime things seem to be going wrong economically and interest rates should be tightened, he does nothing, or he wants to lower rates. He's never seen a rate hike that he enjoys or that he likes. So this time, when he's giving a speech, and we're expecting that he's going to give his normal dovishness, he says we're not looking to increase rate hikes in the near future, and we're going to start looking at what the effects of negative interest rates would be. So basically, rather than being fiscally responsible, he's saying, let's figure out if we can just fix things by throwing more debt at the problem, which is never the answer. You cannot dig yourself out of a hole. You can't borrow your way out of debt. It just doesn't make sense. So from that, there's a lot of fear going on. Scroll up to the heat map for me there, Frank.
Will do.
In the trade tab. So I was talking to you about this in the pre-production show, and when news events like this come out, you look at a heat map, and a heat map really does have the 1,000 words. Oh, over on there it is. When you look at this heat map, Apple's up obviously because of their latest releases and things. But if you have a normal movement of selling that in the market, then what you'll typically see is you'll see other sectors down, where you'll see your things like utilities kind of being up as you have that bullish pullback. When you're seeing red across the board, this to me says there's some irrational selling out there. There's some irrational fear. There's something that just doesn't look right now. So just wanted to point that out, just because there are negative signs, there are negative headlines. I've talked about the news being fear mongers. I still believe that right now. Now, because if we go to the chart, you can see that even though each of the sectors are pushing against those key levels, they're just pushing against them. I mean, and you and I even talked about that. If you were looking at the S&P, it's not this first level that's sitting at that we're worried about. It's actually a little bit lower, because if it breaks down below this first level, we kind of start looking at neutrality, right?
Absolutely.
It's not until it starts breaking, 2720 that we start feeling bearish. So
I would agree with that.
Right now, I'm still not afraid. I'm starting to get more cautious, and actually that could be an easy topic for us today, is that we could say, how do you adjust your account if you are starting to get cautious, or if you do have some fears popping up in your own head? Because let's face it, we're irrational creatures trying to figure out something that should be rational.
Yeah, and that is a good point. And I do agree with your analysis. If we do take out this low that we've now established, I don't think you could call that a pivot. I don't think Matt would call it a pivot either. But it was a support level, right? We haven't even tested that. So, you guys know me. If it's not breaking support, I'm really not getting too worked up. Now, with that said, if that support breaks, I agree with Cody. Our swing level way down here is really kind of the tipping point for me to turn into a bear. But if we break some support, hedging is very much on the table, locking in profits, doing some sort of hedging techniques. Of course, let's not forget we can still take bearish trades as well, right? If we see that. So, and I think this is a key level. We are seeing some decent movement off of today's lows, just coming into a 5-minute chart, starting to, maybe put up a little bit of a fight. Yes, it's a 5-minute chart. I'm not going to get too crazy or excited, but we are still seeing the bulls. They're still fighting. And that's kind of, to me, what this really is a real battle right now between, the technicals and maybe the emotions in the marketplace.
Yeah. And I couldn't even add to that, because that's exactly what I feel about the market. I'm not necessarily, worried or freaking out. I'm more just annoyed right now with the news. And that's the easiest way I could say it, is that they'll never take a break from trying to double down. and I'm not going to get into politics and that stuff, but even when it comes to when they say, things are bad, they'll double down on why things are bad, even if things look good. It's not until things start looking really good, they're like, they've been great for months. And it's like, but then why have you been telling us things are terrible for months? They're quick to yell out, doomsday. They're slow to yell out things are good. Because you look back over this past, since January, where we hit that V-shaped recovery, that sharp bottom, they were still talking about how the market was struggling this entire way up. It wasn't up until about a month ago that they started even mentioning that the markets are starting to look healthy. And to me, that's just in their nature. They don't even realize that they do it.
Yeah, I try to live in a news bubble as much as possible. If I could live in a complete news bubble, I would. Sadly, you can't.
No, I can't. When you're in charge of the newsletter, You have to. I have to
Well, yeah,
dive in. And
you
I
have to know what's going on in the world around you just because you don't want to know it, right? So
oh, it's a Codian Wonderland moment, the Wonderland of the news media. And let me tell you, that rabbit hole goes pretty deep.
I went down it a few times. I try to not dig too deep myself anymore, but keeping an eye on the S&P, keep an eye on this support level as the day progresses. Again, everybody's going to manage their account the way they want to, and they should. No two traders are exactly the same, but keep an eye on that support level as maybe that tip, maybe a little bit of neutrality. If we can knock into that, I wouldn't knock somebody for taking that type of a mindset personally.
Yeah, definitely. So let's go ahead and start working our way through the markets. Let's move on to the Dow. Now, the Dow is going to look the same as the S&P just because, as I was saying, I see a little bit of irrational selling right now in the market. There is some rationale to it when it comes to the EU being stupid, in my opinion. I'm not going to go on a huge rant. I feel like I've got my opinion out there on how I feel about Draghi and his thoughts on how to deal with monetary policy, but I digress. With other economies starting to show that they are struggling, and we have been hearing this for a while, and the news headlines keep coming out that they're struggling, with other governments deciding that they're not going to try to be fiscally responsible at all. Well, they say they are, but they keep saying, we'll do it in the future. Well, the road of someday leads to never. So I don't see them changing their sentiment anytime soon. So as long as other parts of the globe are weak, then it does start to get a little concerning with us. So I'm not going to say that everything's peachy right now. So I do see reason for concern, but I also don't see this, let's go jump in our bunker mentality. And I've been saying that all week, and I still feel the same way.
Yeah, I'm right there with you. And just technically, the Dow is showing those neutrality signs anyway, So, and I think for the most part, while we get caught up in the day to day because we're people, this chart really has kind of had this neutral vibe to it for over a week now, right? At least in my mind, it has, since we really kind of failed at that 26 mark, still above support, still above the 50-day moving average even. So, I think when we take a step back a little bit, we can say, yeah, at least right now, and hey, we might break support. I don't know the future. Nobody does. But I think it kind of suggests much of the same. We are in that, more of a kind of a neutral range. And that seems to be how the price action. Think about what we've seen over the last week. Big bullish day Thursday, big bearish day Friday, doji day, tried to gain momentum yesterday, gave it all back today. That really, again, we're just seeing a battle within this zone. I don't think there's a lot of clarity across the board.
Absolutely not. And to me, that does look like a neutral wedge pattern type situation forming. So I can see this thing taking its time over the next 2 weeks or so, letting those news headlines die down, and then moving off of actual fundamentals or technical analysis on which way it's going to move. And that's the way that I think all of our traders should look at it. Now, with that being said, and I've said this a couple times in the newsletter, and I'll go on a little bit of a joyride on it today. If you're ever feeling nervous, and we've talked about it before on how to protect your portfolio using put options, and how to go through and beta weight off of the S&P to see how much insurance you need. There is not a single coach out there. There's not a single trader out there that would fault you if you personally are feeling nervous and wanting to buy insurance. No one would get onto you for that. Someone might say, hey, this might not be the best time for it. But if that's your feeling that you want to make sure you're protecting your assets, then by God, get out there and do it. Because if you're worried about the market, going down, or whether you're over leveraged or something along those lines, you're not going to be in a sound mind to even make a clear trade. Because if your bias is that the entire market, could crash tomorrow and institutions could fail without knowing, then you don't feel comfortable putting on a very nice, bullish trade. It could be setting up perfectly, but you still just, that irrationality behind your mind kind of scares you. But if you have that and you were to add a little bit of insurance to your portfolio, then you don't have that fear anymore. You could take that bullish trade because if something goes wrong, you have that insurance. So if there's ever that moment and you're feeling scared because of the news, because things, they might get bad. Yield curves that 2 and 10 do cross, then we should, start seeing a little bit of signs of recession in the next 2 years. So the thing is that if you are worried, then look into that insurance. But my thought would be, in addition to when you're looking at it, take a step back and say, okay, am I being irrational right now? Am I looking at everything that's going on? Is there a signal that I want to look for? Then I'm going to get in and buy some insurance. If it breaks this number, that could be the trigger that I'm going to do it. So kind of look at all this, just take a step back, take a deep breath. We're going to be here every day. We're going to be at the coach show. We're going to be, our Wednesday mastermind groups. We're going to be, Tyler's going to be there on Thursday with cash flow. All the coaches are going to be there constantly to help point out when we start feeling fear in the market. I can see what the headlines are trying to put fear in the market. I can see where there is some selling going on, but I'm not seeing a doomsday yet. And for that reason, I currently do not have insurance on my personal portfolio. So that's my bias. I don't see that it's going to crash tomorrow. No, if I could be wrong. I'm human.
Oh, absolutely. And it really comes to comfort, guys. I mean, no one can tell you what's comfortable, and I don't feel like you ever have to explain to somebody why you do or do not want to take a trade or to add, insurance to your portfolio right now. If you're freaking out, yeah, of course, right? You're probably over leveraged. Maybe you should be thinking about that type of stuff too. And I do like what you said there, Cody, having clear signals for when you're going to potentially do those type of things. So very sound advice.
I ranted on a few times before.
All right. Really quick, talking about Dow, you do have Dow DuPont. They're actually finally splitting. Of course, Dow DuPont is a Dow company, an S&P 500 company. They are splitting into two companies here, or actually I think it might be three. One of them will remain on the Dow. I think that will go into place on the 2nd of April. We'll talk about it either here or I'll talk about it in the recap as it happens. We don't see things change in the Dow very often, so it's always fun. But we are going to be seeing that here next week. More interesting than practical, I think.
All right. I'm curious to see what happens with that.
Yeah, well, I mean, they're such a huge company that it appears at least they're trying to break down into more segment type of basis, so you can invest in the ag business, the material sciences business, so on and so forth, a little more specifically than just the total package, which is kind of where we are right now.
Yeah, can definitely see that. All right, moving on to the NASDAQ. What do you see here on the NASDAQ?
Really, really similar, catching that support level. For me, NASDAQ is fairly comfortable at 7,200 as far as where I have support. That was a breakout point in my personal opinion. And as long as we're holding that breakout point, I will continue to look at it as such. What really I think this week has done is beat up some of those potential retracement candidates, because now the charts are a little rocky, not so pretty, not carrying any momentum off of yesterday, not able to take out yesterday's high today, obviously pretty much anywhere in the market. But really right now, I still am looking at above 72 with some good signals, clearly not seeing them today in my mind, at least. I'm very open to this area still personally. I still believe this is by far the cleanest chart that we have on an index level right now.
I can definitely agree with that. And with us being on the NASDAQ, go ahead and pull up Apple. I want to see. It's one of the only companies up right now. The other one being Comcast is up as well. What's your read right here on this chart that you see? Are you looking at Apple and potential future? I'm saying like it's to me, this looks like a very, very nice bullish retracement off of a nice support level. We're getting some slowing momentum. I'm really liking this chart. What are your thoughts?
I can see why folks might be liking it. Little inside candle here today, little pinch developing between the 9 and the 200. Certainly that can give us a little pop if we can, of course, come out of it to the upside. I'm not loving this pullback, though, to be quite honest with you. That can absolutely change. Just today, I guess I know myself pretty well, and I can't see any scenario where it sells me the rest of this week. Upward movement tomorrow is probably not going to sell me, right or wrong. We will see. I can definitely understand. I mean, the trend is nice. We've taken out some resistance in the form of the 200-day moving average. We also have this old little double top area that we really, took off once we broke out of in the same general price point. So I think if we can kind of start to establish some upward movement, there might be something interesting in Apple. I'm not quite there yet personally, but again, I'm a little bit on the cautious side when it comes to pullbacks. I'm pretty picky, I guess, is a good way to put it.
Well, this is one of those moments where traders disagree. I think we get a signal above that 200-day moving average, above 190 to the upside. I think that's a tradable signal.
Oh, don't get me wrong. If I had to do something, I would go to that side too. So, but I don't have to, right?
Absolutely, yeah. If you don't like it, you don't have to trade it.
Exactly.
Trading.
So, well, absolutely.
Let's go ahead and move on to the Russell.
So over in the rut, interesting day in the rut. Of course, yesterday working back into that falling 9. I still have concerns about the Russell. It has not changed my opinion at this point. We're pretty red earlier in the day coming off of those lows. So again, whether it's the Russell or other indexes, you are seeing fight here in the market. It's not Friday again, right? We're seeing that battle between the buyers and the sellers. Now, with all of that said, still bumping our head on that 50-day moving average, still have made lower highs and lower lows, still have a falling 20 with a falling 9 below it, still looking at this a little bit more bearish than bullish right now personally.
I can see that, and that's exactly how I feel on it. When I take a look at that chart, it's like I want it to play with the rest of them. I don't want it to be the lagging indice, but I can't change what I see. So I'm just going to play it the way I see it.
Yeah, and I think so. I think if we do start breaking back above these averages, you could make a case to put us back into neutrality. I certainly don't think this is a aggressively bearish looking chart, but the signs of weakness are there. Lower highs and lower lows are kind of a thing. So, keep an eye on these averages if you're looking at it from a, getting back into neutrality is kind of where my head is at. If we continue to see some selling, this could be I think it was Adam yesterday said it looks like a developing bearish retracement. And I think that with a little bit of selling, it might just do that. That might look that way to me as well.
Very well. Let's continue on down here. Next, let's move on to the dollar. Now, I could go on and on about the dollar. I know that you guys know I'm a Forex trader. Obviously, one of the strongest factors in the US dollar index because it's compared against multiple currencies. I believe it's 30 to 35% weighted against the euro. So
it's heavy, euro heavy. Yeah.
A big chunk of it's to the euro. So obviously with Draghi becoming more dovish, that increases what my bias would be on the dollar. For that reason, not to mention the euro dollar chart you and I were talking about this morning is sitting at a key floor level. If that thing were to break, it could move a little bit more, also adding some strength to the dollar. Now, one other thing I want to talk about is across the pond from the euro, in Britain, Theresa May is not having a good day. She has tried her best to get her deal through. She's the Chequers deal, trying to get a middle-of-the-line Brexit deal made. And when I've looked at it, it does look middle of the line. When it comes to their party's Labour Party and the equivalent of basically our Republican and our Democratic Party, and she did find a very middle ground exit strategy that would also benefit Britain and the EU, and she just can't seem to get enough support on both sides. Vote's gone up twice, it's been shot down twice, and now her job's on the line. And she's started putting in paperwork as to, look, if we can't get something done, here's going to be my resignation date. So I guess that's her way of saying, you know what, if y'all can't, work with me, then, pick someone else to figure it out, which doesn't sound like it's the best negotiating strategy up front. But sometimes I think you have to do that. You say, look, if we can't make a deal, there's no point of me wasting my time. And as the prime minister, to say that when it comes to a major treaty, global treaty that really does affect other parts of the globe, That's very interesting that she's pretty much said, hey guys, like we're going to figure this out, or I'm going to let you find someone else to figure it out, because we've already been signaled that no Brexit is not an option. The fact that the deadline, which is supposed to be in 2 days, has now been extended, shows that a no Brexit deal is not an option. They need to find some deal. And now Theresa May is saying, look, if you don't want my deal, what do you want? And there was something like 16 other proposals have kind of been started being put together by various parliament members that just lean all the way across the spectrum. Everything from, hard Brexit to, a separation but not a divorce from the EU. So it's very interesting to see how this thing goes. You put that right on top of, this EU news. That area of the globe right now is just not having a good day. You're not going to have a good time.
As you talk through it, I'm thinking, of course, Theresa May is saying, I'm out if we don't get this through. I imagine she's probably tired of it. So whatever you think of her or any of her stances, it's been a long, long process. And it's been interesting to watch the market, for the most part, not care about it. So.
Absolutely. Well, I feel somewhat betrayed here. I mean, I've been watching our watching numbers go down. I guess the No Justice crew is not having a lot of fans right now. So with that being said, guys, everyone that is here, give us a like. Let the rest of them know they're going to be missing out. And we should make sure we give you all some good treats and nuggets before y'all go, just for sticking around with us. But of course, everyone who watches it afterwards, give us a like and share as well. So from that, let's go ahead and move on to oil. Oil, we did get our inventory reports that come out now. Do you follow oil as closely as I believe Mark does?
I don't think anybody follows oil as closely as Mark does, to be quite honest with you. No, not nearly as much as Mark. He loves the numbers.
Oh yeah, definitely. So the U.S. inventories came out, which of course these are the numbers that Matt and Tim always joke that these people don't know how to count, and they unexpectedly found an extra 2.8 million barrels. So it's like, did you count the ones behind the shed? Oh, I didn't realize there were 2 million of them back there. So of course, what does that do to oil? That means that there was an unexpected increase in supply. Now, whether these numbers really do affect as much as they used to, considering that folder on forexfactory.com has shifted all the way from red to there are times where it's come out even as a yellow folder, meaning that it's not overly worried about. So oil inventories being up, basic economics tells you supply's up, supply's up, demand's down, so price should come down off of that. That's what I'm seeing today in the market. What are your thoughts?
Yeah, that news, especially short term, that news tends to get priced in. You can see some pretty wild movements, on that report if you scrunch that time frame down. If we kind of look at it a little bit further out, it's almost developing a little bit of a potential cup and handle pattern. It's Absolutely. That 60 marker, and again, I'm always, primarily focused on the technicals personally. And it's just this 60 has developed to be, now even more with the selling off of that report into a pretty clear level of resistance. I don't really think you could make a strong case that much has changed from a technical point of view on crude right now. We are selling off those numbers. That does make sense because that kind of tends to be the way that it works. But as a general rule, I believe it's kind of gobbled up quickly and then we forget about it.
That's the way I see it. And I love the word gobbled up.
I mean, we have another report next Wednesday. We only have 4 days before we can get a new one, right?
Absolutely right. And as you were pointing out, this intraday cup and handle, so intermarket analysis or inter time frame analysis, I do love because, you're looking at the daily, you're seeing this, this high base forming. Then you look at intraday and you start seeing a little bit of a, not the prettiest cup and handle, but you can kind of see that forming. To me, that starts to look like two different signals that both would be bullish if they break to the upside. I love it when not only are we getting the technical setups at time frames, but or at time points or moving averages, but when the time frames themselves start lining up as well, it's just like it's like on the what was it? Was it the first or the second? On the Tomb Raider movie when all the planets were aligning just perfectly so that they could like stop time or something.
I don't know.
Being a little bit of a nerd there. But anyways, I just love it when everything lines up like that. I'm really liking oil. If the intraday and the daily both showing this bullish pattern, we get a break above 60. That to me is a tradable signal. Next thing that could possibly slow it down, but I do not think it'll slow it down that much, is the 62 mark. So keep an eye on oil, guys.
Yeah, I think 62 or approximately there. There's just not a lot there if we can take out, and it's turning out to be a fight. Never want to assume that we can break resistance just because we're looking for it to break resistance, right? But I do agree with your analysis, and a little more reason to believe that this 58 zone is our support level that we can believe in.
Absolutely. I'm there.
We got to peek at natural gas.
We got to be quick on it, though.
All right. Well, just a quick peek because it's doing something today. We've not been able to do it. We're actually taking out this support zone, the bottom of the trading range here today. Now, there's still time left in the day, but giving up this support level as of now, first sign that, maybe, the bears are going to be the ones, at least short term, that take natural gas. We've been in this range in a long time, so I would be remiss not to take 30 seconds to look at the chart. Breaking of support, old resistance level, been in this range, as you guys know, for a month now. Next level of support really going to be down here. So a little bit of room to run to the downside if it wanted to. I still don't think it's a great tradable environment for a swing trader, but it's finally doing something.
And you know what? To that point, that's why you look at it. Even when you're starting to get bored, and I mean, I'm completely joking out there, guys. Like I would still look at natural gas through my morning routine, always do. But when it is doing something like this is why you consistently look at it. Even though, like, don't tell Matt out there, but I still look at the VIX, even though, Matt's like, the VIX is broken. Why? Because it's in my routine. I was taught to do it. I look at it. If something changes, I'm going to look there. So, I mean, natural gas, even though it was broken for a little while, I still got to look at it. Still got to add that in my routine. And frankly, like you were saying, today is actually showing a technical signal. Now, are we going to trade this? No, not necessarily, but this is a change out of that neutrality range now, that this could now move down to the next support level. Because when the floor gives out, the second floor, you go down to the first floors. It's just the way it goes.
So yeah, definitely interesting. We're only half a day in, so there's still, time for it to fight back. But I think what this shows us more than anything is we weren't the only ones looking at the bottom of that range as support. So as you're seeing, maybe some bulls get out, some bears get in on that support break. So enough natural gas here. Just had to be
for one day.
One of these days, though. I mean, that's why you look at this every day. So what if it's 7 months from now when there's that great signal on natural gas? Takes Absolutely. 30 seconds to look at it, right?
That's true. So moving on to gold. Gold, I still feel the same way. And then this is another. So I was talking about the heat map and irrational selling, right? And when I see selling across the market, selling in all sectors, and then I don't see buying in gold. To me, that just adds to irrationality, because if this is a, we need to go protective, then wouldn't gold be getting an increase in volume to the upside today?
You'd think it would be a tempting place to put that money, yeah.
I mean, you're going to have negative interest rates. It's better to hold in gold than it is to hold in cash.
No. And again, I mean, when you're not breaking support, maybe, and I think I agree with your take. I mean, we're not seeing a lot of real strong sell signals, so pretty rational. But on gold, I mean, it really is, it's just gotten choppy, right? All of a sudden, the good gold that we were all enjoying back when it first broke to the upside, or any time in between, it's just a choppier place to be right now, and that just makes it a little more. I'm not as interested. Whereas last part of last year and the first part of this year, basically traders were looking for any excuse, whatever it was, no matter how grim that day looked. If it came to support, boom, folks were buying right back off of those support levels. So it's still just in a little bit of a choppy range, I think, personally, and I'll continue to, much like yourself, be treating it as such. I still overall do like it, just not as a swing trading vehicle right now.
Absolutely. Moving on to silver. Silver's still broken, and now this looks like that's an uglier candle on silver than we had on gold. Gold still looked like it was moving up. this, if you were to call this a, a bear flag, that would be a break of that flag.
Absolutely. Absolutely. Taking that out today, and, not very pretty, but a potential kiss goodbye too, right?
Yeah.
Working back into this old support zone. It's not been pretty, but I think you could make the case. I think you can make a much easier bearish case technically on silver than gold right now. The gold I just kind of want to leave alone, but I've kind of maintained for a while now that I understand a bullish argument on gold much more than silver from a technical point of view. Today has certainly done nothing to change that opinion. That's for sure.
Absolutely.
We do have
Well,
some support in that 15 and a quarter range. There's still, much like the top, we talked a lot about over the last few days about lots of layers of resistance above us. We also have lots of levels of support below us. 15 and a quarter
yes,
has
yes.
been, important. We've got our swing low / 200-day moving average. Obviously 15, a big support level. I still think, as Tavo says, patience is where I'm at, and I've been for a
Oh,
while
he's
on
absolutely
silver.
right. And I mean, that simple word is really how I feel about this entire market. It's just the reason I'm irritated with the news is they're trying to make us all act, and I don't think it's time.
Yeah, and whether that is true or not, the price action there was, again, we've seen this no follow through thing again, right? Not specifically on silver, but just market in general. Yesterday, we technically put in that higher, higher, and higher low. Today, we weren't using that kind of thought process in our example yesterday for our stop loss conversation. We're not carrying that momentum. We're not taking out that intraday high. Well, then who's buying, right? That's a fairly common methodology. So it's a little bit of a wonky market right now, and the VIX will definitely kind of go to show that we're a little bit
There
more
we
on
go. The VIX.
eggshells right now. Again, I'm not a big VIX guy, but it can be helpful to some traders, and if it's helpful to anybody, then I'm happy to have them using it. It really can help us kind of, for me, I think it's more finger on the pulse of the marketplace, if you will. It's not so much that it's up today versus down yesterday. It's that we, just with the kind of increase that we've seen, yeah, and maybe you can see this in the charts. I think you can kind of see it in the index charts too, with a little more volatility. But I think there's right now, traders, they really felt for quite some time they had a good handle on the mentality of the market. Right now, maybe not quite so much.
Yep. And now I want to speak a little bit to the VIX, just because when you're looking at it just on a daily candle, market up, VIX down, market down, VIX up. But one of the things that I've noticed in, when I've done a little bit of deeper dive into the VIX or into, the ARC high low, or how they could be used to make some volatility plays, when I was doing that part of my studying, which, by the way, to all traders, you should be studying more than you're actually trading. And I completely believe in that. But on the VIX, if you'll go to like a intraday on, 15-minute, 30-minute, hourly, any of those would be fine. What you notice with the VIX, and this is where I think the key thing really comes from, is where are those major moves in the VIX? Typically, they're going to happen at the open because of the news that are coming out while the markets are closed. Mm-hmm. Now, if during the day I'm seeing the VIX continue moving in that direction that it was already moving in, then okay, this looks a little bit more concerning. So if you were to look back at, when the market was dropping, where the VIX didn't even have an upper wick, it literally just opened and went upward. That's a little bit more indicative to me than when you have an open that spikes up and then very quickly intraday comes back down. So yeah, right there, you can look at today, you can see how it spiked up during the open and it's already coming back down. That's based off of, those initial fears. And we all know that there's more volatility during the open and the close. But to me, it's not as much, is it up or is it down? I would look at the intraday behavior of the VIX to kind of give me an idea of how the market's feeling or how people within the market are feeling. And that's kind of how I use the VIX versus just saying, oh, it's up, oh, it's down. So
that's what I like to hear. While I don't use the VIX in the same way, I love that it's helpful for you in its own way. And that's the thing about trading. There's not just a one size fits everybody, right? I learned that a long time ago. What I consider confirmation, other people, used to think I was too aggressive. Now they think I'm too conservative, but I am me, so that is awesome to hear that. And we just take a quick peek here looking like looking at the VIX and the movement of the VIX. Just back into the S&P really quick, see how it's running into that challenge area. I just had to take a quick peek, and I'm the one with the screen share, so I had to share it. So,
and you know what? Like I said, there's different times, and you know what? When the VIX is boring, fine. But when the VIX is moving, I do like to look at, okay, did this move off a news event? Is this moving because there's true fear in the market? And kind of getting a feel on that based on the intraday, I think is the better way to use the VIX versus just saying, is it up, is it down?
Yeah, that's fair. A couple things I just wanted to highlight, from a sector level. We talked about them on Monday. We've talked about them over in the market recap, but we're having, really big battles at key support zones within a couple of our sectors right now. Definitely want to take a quick peek at them. Here we have the material sector just still hanging at that support level. It's been a battle, up and down off of that level. That is a key support zone, in my opinion. A break below that, it could be interpreted as a sell signal, as we've talked before. Definitely a battle, I think, worth keeping an eye on. Same thing over in the industrials, hanging out, on, and might depend on what you like better, whether the double top potential if we break support in materials, or the lower highs and lower lows potential if we break support in the industrial. So two sectors battling, at least in my mind, pretty key levels of support that are important to those areas as a whole. And you are muted. Oh, there you are.
Oh, sorry. Love that analysis there, Frank. And now on the industrials, more news coming out, and I got to mention on Boeing. Apparently, another plane, a Southwest Boeing 737 MAX, had an engine failure.
Oh, goodness.
So Boeing has been trying to battle with this. They were looking into it. They're doing investigations. For a little while, I thought maybe this plane, I wasn't quick to jump and say, this is a mechanical error or this is pilot error. I really did just want to wait and see, what's coming out. When you have two of the same planes in 6 months, okay, as humans, we think, wow, that's a big thing. But then when if you were looking at the numbers, look at the statistics, and actually look at the law of large numbers, and you see that, there are 30,000 flights a day or something crazy like that around the globe, and take that times 6 months times the two that went down. Statistically, that's not significant at all. Now, I don't want to sound heartless, hopes and prayer, thoughts and prayers to everyone that was involved in that. But when I'm looking at that just from a statistical standpoint, I want to think, okay, is this a random event? Is this a pattern? And now with today's news coming out that an engine failure has come out, I'm starting to lean more toward this might be some, mechanical issues that Boeing really needs to worry about. So I have my eye on Boeing. What are your thoughts?
Oh, Boeing is and will continue to be on timeout for me for the foreseeable future. It's going to take a long time for me to want to do anything with Boeing, regardless of what I see on the chart, because of that potentially increased volatility with that stuff. It'll be a while. I don't know when it will be, but it will be a while from now. It would make me nervous to have a bullish trade or a bearish trade. And again, it comes to comfort. If I'm going to lose sleep over a Boeing trade, well, I'm just not going to trade Boeing because I like my sleep. So,
sleep is good.
So, yeah, but certainly, and that's definitely weighed. But it's easy to take the top dog in the industry and kind of attribute everything to them, but they're not the only industrial company, of course. One easy trick that I try to share with folks I talk to, you guys probably can kind of tell my methodology, kind of start at the markets into the sectors, just like so many other traders. I'll make a little watch list for each of those different industries, and I'll put the big players, the top 10 or so big players within that field. So industrials, I can do a quick dive. Yeah, well, Boeing, you're not looking great, but I'm not all that interested in you. But I can easily kind of browse down the list of these big performers within whatever sector it is that I'm looking for, to kind of get a better idea. You guys do a little different than I do, but you guys do it a lot here in the halftime report. I find that easy transition. Oh, I'm interested in potentially, a bearish play. If industrials break support, I can kind of easily work through some of the lower or some of the bigger companies within that area, see if there's anything that jumps out. You probably saw Cat kind of fit that priority list for me.
He does.
I know Tim, probably GE for him, but I can kind of work through. And again, just kind of thinking ahead, it's definitely something that we've got in a report this week. If we see the break in the industrials and I see the break in Cat, this could be something.
I see that little cup and handle pattern you got your eye on.
Right. So
I see you.
Hasn't happened yet, for me at least, and may very well not happen. I always treat support and resistance as if they're going to hold. I'll prepare. What do I think I should be looking to do if they don't hold? Right? They don't call me Breakout Frank for no reason. Yep. But I never make the mistake anymore, at least, of assuming because I want it to, or I think if it does, there's room to run. That's not a license to jump the gun. Right. I don't want to, I want to make sure, but I found that a very easy way to find trades, whether it's, using, because I find that most traders, and I am not an organized person, you probably can tell, Cody, just by talking to me on a day-to-day basis. So I have to find ways to keep myself organized, because my natural personality is just do a bunch of stuff, and that doesn't really work well in trading, as you guys all know. And so I found by, kind of breaking my list a little bit further down, hey, this is where I'm at in tech or industrials, working down that way can be very helpful in staying organized, having a better feel for what that individual sector is doing or how my opinions might change. Sometimes, you'll look at the financials, maybe you like them, and then you go look at the banks, you say, oh my goodness, I don't like them anymore, right? It can change your perspective a little bit.
Absolutely. Now, for those of you that stuck around, I did make a small promise earlier that give you a little nugget. So the little nugget I'm thinking, Frank, and let me know if you want me to run or if you want to run. Let's do a little bit of a rapid fire real quick. Guys, if you have a stock out there that you want us to quickly analyze, we're going to do this, 5-10 seconds on each. Throw it in the chat right now. Let's go ahead and just do that for the next 5 minutes or so. And that'll be the nugget that if you have something you individually are curious about, throw it out there. We'll try to get to all of them. We'll see how quick we go based on what we get. 43, 42 people now. We get 42 people put in the chat. We get a lot of stocks to look at.
All right. 5 or 10 seconds, probably a little optimistic there, my friend.
So. You are true about that. Just all right. First one coming in, ABBV.
All right. Abby V here. So big gap to the downside, working back into that 50-day moving average. Now, as you can see here, I already have a line on this, Jasmine. This is a key level of support, in my opinion, at the $77 range. For me, that's kind of where the action is, back into 77. This battle, if we break to the upside, I could see a bullish argument, but I would not make that. With the price action developing, with as strong as I feel the support level down here at 77 is, I think I'd have a hard time getting a risk to reward. That even if I did feel it was going to drop back down into that support, I don't think the risk to reward would be there for me. So I'm looking at this more in my breakout watch list real quickly into a weekly chart. That always helps. Not a lot of support if that floor gives out until about that $70, $71 marker at that 200 weekly moving average.
All right, next one on there, Starbucks. I will take Starbucks. If you can pull up the chart for me.
Yes, sir.
Yes, bucks. All right, so Starbucks, what I'm seeing, so we had pushed above that old resistance level, about $69. We made a high base. We've recently just broken out of that now, so we're seeing a continuation of break move, break pause out of Starbucks. We did get that yesterday on a decent day. Today, when the market's down big, we see that Starbucks is only 0.1% down, 0.08% down now. So what I'm seeing on this is that it does want to continue to move to the upside. It's being held back by the market. So I do like the chart. I do like the pattern. Keep an eye on this. If this break continues, I can see it quickly moving up to 75, if not higher.
Yeah, absolutely. Second day confirming that break.
All right. Next stock on the list is Activision.
Oh, my friend, Activision. Still count down the days till WoW Classic comes out sometime this summer. Interesting chart. Of course, we all know kind of the debacle on their most recent earnings report. getting back above that 50-day moving average, certainly a nice step in the right direction. We now have a rising 9, a 20 that's trying to rise up, get back above that 50-day moving average. Pullback, I could see the argument. I still am very leery of the video game stocks in general right now. They're a little too volatile for me personally, but I think if we can hold above this 50, get some signals, I could understand folks saying these are the early stages of maybe it turning back around.
Awesome. All right, moving on. Looks like Lear, and Adam's already said bear retracement on Lear. So let's see what that looks like. I'm not quite seeing a bear retracement here. If anything, I'm seeing where it double topped and kind of faded down to the downside. It looks like it took a small pause at its 50-day moving average, and now it's kind of holding right about that 132 mark, 132.50 mark, which has a lot of support back about 4 to 6 months ago. So it's holding there. If it makes a low base and then breaks below it, then I can see that as a tradable signal. I really would like to see this thing close below probably 131 and some change, just below the previous lows 3 or 4 days ago, and see if then that can move to the downside. Don't really see this as a retracement, as I do see it forming a potential low base.
Yeah, to that, I would agree with that, Cody. To that, though, fine to ask for one, right? Fine to say, if we could run back up into that 9, into that falling 20, just because we're not here today, know what you want, why you want it. Hey, I'd love Lear to work back up into that 140, into that old support level, into that falling 20-day moving average, get me a sell signal for a potential bearish play. Will those things happen? Who knows? Does it hurt to ask? Not at all.
No, you always ask the trading gods for what you want.
Sometimes they listen.
Next one for you, ADP. Frank, what do you got?
Oh, ADP. These guys have been a juggernaut, taking out a major level of resistance back here. A little bit of a sideways range, broke out again, and another breakout. These are a tough one to trade, I think, from my perspective, but I would not want to be betting against these guys. These guys have been the epitome of strong. They don't seem to care what the market's doing. Spent basically forever above their short-term moving averages, hitting a new all-time high today. And I have a simple saying: if you're hitting all-time highs, you can't be that bearish.
Love it, love it, love it. All right, next looks like mine is Take-Two. So Take-Two's going to fall right within that gaming sector, just like Activision. Now, if we were to do a comparison of the three, if you were to add EA in there, that could be a longer debate, so I'm not going to get into it. What I see here is the argument could be made that this stock is wanting to turn around. We have that U-shaped recovery, making that pullback now above its 50-day moving average. I need to see this thing get above $100 as a major support level before I can really, really start to feel more comfortable trading the stock. Until then, I'm putting this in a timeout.
I would agree. You look at this weekly chart, that 100 was a key support level for quite some time. That's where our longer term, short term, well, if that makes sense, our weekly short term moving averages are hanging out. I would agree with that. Above 100, I could see, but much like Activision, seeing some signs of life. These guys were pretty ugly. The video games as a whole, their charts were looking pretty ugly. You just brought up EA just for comparison's sake quickly, seeing similar things. They broke, kind of a little before these guys, these other two companies did, but they've shown, although not very well behaved in my mind, signs of life.
All right. Looks like we have two more, unless someone wants to throw it in there, because we've got plenty of time, guys. We're ahead of schedule. Throw some more out there. Let's go on to Match. This one is yours.
All right. Match here, getting caught up in the selling today after taking out resistance there on, that was Thursday, wasn't it? Along with the overall market.
Yes, it was.
Pulling back, I will call that a bullish signal. Working back, looks like towards that 50-day moving average. Probably one of those type of developments. We have support down here. I'd look at the 50 as kind of the first level of support. I would call a break below the 50 and the support level the sell signal. Personally, think I need to see a little bit more slowing. I could be talked into a bullish retracement if we were to see maybe a small body candle or a little doji party closing out the week. Probably have a hard time wanting to jump in this week, though. That did kind of mess up its pullback, if you want to call it that. But I still think you have to overall lean a little more to the bullish side on Match right now.
I couldn't agree more. Moving on to Ulta, I have to say I love Ulta as a tradable stock company, and my wife loves Ulta because she likes to spend money. But when I'm analyzing this chart, this was, I believe, on our scattering reports this past weekend.
It was
going over it. I cannot remember whether we decided we were going to treat it as as a potential flag or play it as a breakout. Either or, they're both looking to confirm, because if you played it as a bull flag and you got in, and I don't remember where we decided on this.
I believe we were right above the resistance level.
Okay, so we the resistance level at what, 3?
Just right the on the pullback zone. At least that's where I was.
Yeah, that's where I was too. So we played it more as a flag than we did a breakout. And it looks like if you got in as a flag, you are up on that trade. That is working well. Now it's testing that true breakout level that would be the more bullish. So playing it as a flag is a more aggressive entry. Playing it as a breakout is a more conservative entry, and it's also the strongest statistically for a bullish move.
Absolutely.
Now, today, when the market's down, it did try to get above it and it came back down. I'm not too worried about this because I think this is being weighed down by market. Keep an eye on it. If it breaks, it is a good breakout play to the upside.
Yeah, I would love to see it close. We're kind of right there on the line. As you can tell, I can't draw straight lines. Everyone knows that. A close above that resistance, I would definitely call that another bullish signal, but really strong movement at a resistance level. Good call.
All right, let's look. We did get some more because I did ask for them. Let's go to Pan W.
All right, Pan W went from a nice earnings gap, pullback, retracement. What was it, 2 weeks ago? That we had two weeks ago, we had him on the report. I think we actually were able to get in last week, if memory serves the right way. Still kind of drifting to the upside. Today's candle, a little interesting, and the close is going to be really important to me. We did break this swing low from early this week, the one we've talked about so much in the broad market as a little bit of a short-term support level on the intraday, but have currently rallied up and sitting right there. The close is always what I'm looking for. A close below that would give me a little concern, not a bearish outlook, but a little bit concerned from a bullish point of view. If we're able to hold that, I'm going to be looking at the trend. I'll feel a lot better. I know me. I think the signal I'd be looking for is a break above this swing high at 250. If we can break 250, I would like that as at least a potential trade setup. That's probably the signal that I'd be looking for.
Yeah, I couldn't agree more. This is one of those stocks that I would consider flirtatious, and sometimes depending on my mood, I'll add some colorful words after that. But it gapped up, pulled back, looked like a beautiful, earnings gap pullback. Play it as a bullish retracement, and then it started fading to the upside, and then now it's coming back down. And even when it started moving to the upside, it took its time doing it. And so that's why I was saying it was just being a little bit flirtatious. And these type of stocks that behave like this, they can get irritating. So I can understand why you're probably questioning yourself. If you played this as a long call option, that theta is probably starting to bug you a little bit. That every day that goes by, it needs to go higher before you can even make that profit or make that goal you're looking at. So I can see the irritation, but I'm with you, Frank. This thing needs to close above 240. If this thing gets a bigger close below 240, that to me would be an exit signal. I'm out. Yeah,
I would be a little bit concerned. Today's candle would be very important to me as someone who doesn't have any skin in the game on Palo Alto here. I would be letting it do its thing without me.
Yep. All right, well, guys, I did ask for more, but we did just run out of time, so I am going to cut us off. I apologize, but no justice it is.
No justice it is. Tyson is just killing it. Really not a lot to see broke out. I'd love doing this stuff. Let's go with the 30 seconds, Cody. Just kind of continuing that upward movement. We do have a resistance zone not too far ahead of us. We do have these old lows, this old high back through here. So, ton of strength right now. You have to love how they're performing above everything. Little room before resistance on Tyson. Gotta love that.
All right, Stars. Stars has earnings coming up on the 4th. Unless you're looking at it as an earning play, I do not do directional trades 2 weeks after earnings. So you got to keep an eye on that. If you're looking at it as an earnings play, then that's a longer conversation that we can get into another time. Probably a question to ask either on a coach's show or a cash flow show.
Certainly not at 11:30 Mountain. So good call on the earnings. Over on Taylor Morrison, a nice clean break of resistance here today after putting in higher highs. I think you have to give that at least a little bit of bullish credit. And we have officially now made higher highs and higher lows. hanging around at the 200-day moving average. We have some resistance where we looks like we've about bumped our head here about 1870 or so here today. Don't think it's tradable for me just yet, but I would call this a bullish signal via the higher highs and higher lows that have been established. If we can hold this breakout point, that would be kind of the first line in the sand from that perspective.
All right, moving on to team. So team can be a mover, and it does seem to actually behave, but when it has a down day, it seems to have a big down day. So it'll move both up and down very rapidly. So what I'm seeing from this chart is that, it's been moving up in a, bullish retracement pattern. It's been giving us higher highs, higher lows. And then when we had that breakout on Thursday, it played ball with the rest of the market. And then because this particular stock, and this is where it comes down to knowing the personality of companies that you trade, this one, when it has those down days, it has big down days. Now it's sitting about 106, which is where I would say is a major support level for this particular stock. So if this thing starts, breaking down further than that, I would, be looking possibly at a reversal. But I think this thing's just getting beaten up a little bit more than most stocks in the market.
The last 5 days look exactly like the market. Up, down, hammer,
Yep.
doji, down. So tough to call, them one way or the other right now. Are working into that general trend line, that 106 that Cody pointed out. Rising 50-day moving average as well. This area is somewhere I would watch for maybe some signs of turnaround. Clearly not here today. That's just not looking like that is in the cards. And lastly, we've got ourselves some Cron. I know you were talking about Cron earlier, Cody, downgraded here today.
Yeah, you want to talk about a stock that'll upset you. All right. So as I've told you guys in the halftime report, I bought Cron in my wife's IRA. So this is something that I was looking as, a fundamental company that I could sell covered calls on as a, cash flow strategy long term. This is not necessarily a short-term trade for me. I'm not going to treat my wife's IRA like that. I don't think she'd appreciate it. So I actually have been selling calls on this for quite a while, rolled them up as it had that breakout above 14, ran all the way up, rolled those calls out. This last 2 months have been very nice, just, beautiful cash flow environment where it's bouncing around. Now, 2 days ago, or on Monday before earnings, I did what every good trader should do, and I collared the trade. So I bought actually overinsured it. I bought twice as many put options as I needed to on it. Next day, earnings had greater than expected growth, but a decrease in revenue. So it didn't really do much. Things are fine. Collar did its job. It was there for protection. So what do? I took the insurance off. And then today, it drops. So sometimes you get bit. And I mean, I could say, woulda, coulda, shoulda. If I kept it, this would happen. Doesn't matter. This is what happened. What do I do now? And now I simply manage the trade. Yesterday, when I pulled that insurance off, I did go ahead and sell more calls on it. So now I'm simply going to roll those calls down, collect that cash flow, move into the next one. Even though it's misbehaving, I know how to manage the trade and move on.
Awesome. Yeah, you never like to catch the downgrade. I hate downgrades, but we never complain about upgrades in at least our bullish plays. It's funny how that works. But having the plan, knowing how to adjust and deal with it, that's the name of the game too, right? So nicely done there, Cody. All right. Well, I know that is going to wrap us up, and I think they're probably going to drag me out kicking and screaming probably tomorrow. So this may be goodbye for now. No Justice Squad, but rest assured, I will be back. It's only a matter of time until I trick Matt into taking another trip. So thank you so much for having me. I've had a lot of fun with you, Cody. It's been really cool to hang out. I feel like I know so many members of the halftime crew. I'm in the chat a lot with them. So it's been a lot of fun to hang out over this last week or so, getting to know them, getting to chat with them a little bit.
Well, Frank, you're always welcome on this. So anytime you want to come in, just let me know. I'll just boot him, and we'll just have a no justice session.
I love it. Let's shoot for tomorrow.
Today is not over. Tomorrow is going to be our last day because we're going to have our first guest on the No Justice.
Oh, that is right. Oh, goodness gracious. How dare I forget? Yes, our first guest, Matt Justice. Looking forward to that conversation.
All right, guys. Thank you so much. We will see y'all tomorrow.
Thanks, everybody. Have a great day.